Welcome back to my channel where we delve into the dark secrets of family horrors. I'm PlaidPagan, and this week I wanted to talk about the horror novel Mexican Gothic, written by Mexican-Canadian author Silvia Moreno-Garcia. I believe I'm pronouncing her name correctly, and this book was released in 2020. I actually did not intend to cover two books in a row that were written by Canadian authors. It actually wasn't until I was researching for this video that I realized that Silvia Moreno-Garcia lives in Canada. This is the only title of hers that I've read, and she seems to have a mixed bibliography from what I could see, kind of a bunch of different genres that she covers. However, this is the only one I've read, and it was an absolute treat to read. As I've mentioned in previous videos, my horror preference tends to be towards Gothic and cosmic horror, and this book leans heavy on Gothic horror and dabbles a little bit in cosmic towards the end. As usual, like my other videos, I won't go into any spoilers for the story at all. But the main plot follows a young woman named Noemi. I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. I had to look it up. I think I got it right, though. She's basically a socialite living with her father in Mexico City. Her cousin Catalina, who is recently married to a man named Virgil Doyle, who is basically the heir for the Doyle family estate, has been sending her these really disturbing letters where she feels like that her husband is out to murder her. She's begging Noemi for help and wants her to come visit to help her get out of the situation. At first, the letter is kind of mistaken and thrown off as cries of mental illness because in the letter she mentions hearing voices and seeing ghosts in the house and that sort of thing. But eventually, Noemi is kind of not really forced into, but persuaded by her father to go and see what's going on if they need to bring Catalina home to get proper psychiatric help in Mexico City. Upon arriving at the Doyle estate, Noemi is not really treated with much respect. There's kind of a disdain for her. She's an unwelcome guest. As far as I remember, there was some altercation between Virgil and Noemi's father about Catalina's mental state. And so there's kind of this, they're not thrilled that she's there. So there's kind of this animosity between them. They play it off as like kind of pleasant, like passive aggressiveness, you know. And from here, the story is kind of a slow burn as Noemi unravels the kind of dark history and secrets of the Doyle family and the estate that they live on. To say much more about the story is to kind of spoil the general spiral of depravity that the author takes us on into this family's history, so I'm not going to talk about it any further. I will say, though, that this book does an excellent job of remixing old Gothic horror tropes with new creative and fresh ideas, and it's really a breath of fresh air in what is basically a genre about musty old mansions, so that's really great. I appreciate it a lot. For some, this book may seem a little dry because it does take its time with its subject matter and it's a little bit slow, but at the same time, the book is not afraid to throw us these little scraps of morsels to kind of keep us further going. Mexican Gothic has some excellent scares throughout, as well as a very fresh and creative concept in horror that I've never seen before. I really enjoy the callback style to old Gothic horror, like things like Wuthering Heights, which is actually directly referenced several times in the book, and Haunting of Hill House is another example, as well as there's little bits of Lovecraft sprinkled in there just for that little extra kick. I will say at the start, Noemi is a character that I find very fucking annoying. I find her vanity and her selfishness really obnoxious. However, by the end of the book, she goes through such a change and growth as a character. She actually ended up becoming my favorite character by the end of the book, which I was not expecting. So at this point, I'm going to talk a little bit about things that may prevent you from reading it, issues that you may have. I won't go into any details, but give you the general idea so that you kind of know what you're going in for. There is a lot of talk of eugenics, racial superiority, class divide, that kind of stuff in this book. It is in no way praising this stuff. It does treat it as a repulsive, vile garbage that it is, but it is there. There is this kind of general sense with this family that they can only breed with, you know, top stock and specific bloodlines and all this kind of bullshit. So they do kind of look at other people like they're trash, and they kind of have strong racial opinions as well. The other two things that might be triggers for people are kind of spoiler territory. I'm not going to give away anything too major, but I should warn you that these are going to be mild spoilers for the book. Going kind of hand in hand with the topic about keeping the bloodline pure and this kind of racial superiority that this family feels that they have, it does delve into the incest thing, where they will only breed with each other to kind of keep their bloodline as pure as they can. As you uncover more about that, you learn why that is and why they've started to branch out. There never goes into graphic detail about any of these things. It's just kind of a common accepted thing in the book that this family does this. You don't find out till much later. Like I said, it's kind of a mild spoiler, but you can kind of gather that as the book starts going. This last one I'm just going to briefly touch on because it's really sensitive for a lot of people. There are acts of implied / attempted sexual assaults in the book. It's hard to tell if they actually happen or not, or if they are just dreams or fears being manifested in the mind and not actually happening, but still it does talk about them. They're not incredibly graphic. They do happen, just something to be warned of. Mexican Gothic was an excellent read, which I'm not alone in thinking it's a bestseller. It's gotten incredible reviews, and I think any fan of the genre would appreciate it. That being said, I do think that the horror elements are subtle enough that even non-horror fans can appreciate this book, especially if you have an affinity for stories about corrupt aristocrat families, creepy old mansions, kind of that investigative. It's not, I wouldn't really say it's a crime drama, not at all, but like there's kind of those investigative parts of it, trying to unravel this puzzle and this history. So you may enjoy it as well, even if you're not a horror fan based on that. The ending is incredibly satisfying, and despite being such a slow build-up, I think the payoff is top tier and is definitely the kind of icing on the cake of the whole story. This concludes my review of Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno-Garcia. I really hope I'm getting that name correct. I apologize if I'm not. Let me know if you've read this one and what you thought. Also, you can leave recommendations for other books or movies you'd like me to cover on the show down below in the comments section, or you can message me on Slasher, the social media app for horror fans and horror creators. You can find me on there again as PlaidPagan. Feel free to add me and message me. You can offer suggestions. I'd be more than willing to cover something. Feel free to subscribe if you like reviews on all kinds of horror content. Stay safe, be good to each other, and I'll catch you next time.